excited.
From Microbe TV, this is Q&A with A&V. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and joining me tonight from New York, Amy Rosenfeld.
Hello, Vincent. How are you today?
It's a good day. How about you? I hear you had a lot of good data today.
I did. My hybridomas are making antibodies.
Excellent. It's by binding assay, right?
Yep. I have to
Excellent.
concentrate it to see neutralization. Hopefully.
So for those of you who are guessing, Amy has a red cashmere sweater. Is that correct?
It's tangerine. And yes, all sweaters are cashmere.
And I have a green button-down, which Vanity Nutrition guessed. The button-down part is easy. I don't wear anything but button-downs during the week. I am so locked in my ways. It's terrible in some ways. But it's also why I do all this stuff incessantly. All right, let's start from the top. This is the first email chat that I get. Not email, sorry. This is the first chat that I see. Now, there's a lot of chat before this, but when I hit the go live button, this is the first one that comes up. Thank you, Nergui20, for your contribution. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Can you point me to studies that compare immunity after infection and vaccination versus infection and booster? I know the Theodora and Paul paper and the mRNA booster immunization paper discussed on TWIV. I just downloaded like 20 papers that Amy sent me in the past day. Many of them dealing with this, right, Amy? Remember those?
Yep. Yes, I do.
So send me an email. It's easier to do that than here. Vincent@microbe.tv. Okay? Tesseract. That's a Tesseract. Now, isn't a Tesseract something in space? Some kind of thing where things...
I'm not a space person.
Yeah, it's a Tesseract. It's a space thing. I'm pretty sure. All right. Okay. Is it weird that I find VNA perfect lunch break? Where are you in the world that you're having lunch?
Any place that's
8 hours.
15 hours ahead of us. I guess, like, I don't know. What is that, like the Far East?
Well, it could be behind us. Like California is 6 hours behind us. And then it would be like Hawaii. Right?
Yep. Or whatever crosses the international date line. Like South Korea or something.
Yeah.
I think when you were in Japan, this is the time you would be eating lunch.
Yeah, I don't remember. Anyway, I want to thank the mods for tonight. Les is here. Steph is here. Vanity Nutrition is here. I haven't seen Tom yet. I haven't seen Frank. But if they show up, we'll say hello. Tom is here, I see. Okay, someone said hello. Thank you, Tom, as well. And thank you all for coming again. Every evening I say to myself, tonight is the night when no one shows up. But I think that's unlikely, right, Amy?
Most likely.
Here we go. Vanity Nutrition, green button down for Vincent, blue sweater for Amy. Well, you didn't get the blue.
I'm not really a blue person.
You're not?
No, blue is not really this color that goes well with my skin.
Bus drive in one was so scandalized by the challenge study that came out, but I was really intrigued by the data. Yeah, the data were interesting. I do think it was inappropriate, but, it's done. It's done. Thank you, Bus Driving, for your contribution to the incubator. Let's see. Mehdi Hassan just had on Eric Ding and Peter Hotez and said, you two are heroes of this pandemic. And Peter Hotez said, my brilliant colleague Eric Feigl Ding. Why are they heroes, Amy?
I don't know.
I think Amy is a hero of this pandemic, but she's an unsung hero. Mainly forgetting most things right. And when people say you're wrong, I feel like calling them and say, you better be careful about saying she's wrong. I know. I have learned.
Yes. It's true. You don't live it down.
Does anyone know if the next edition of the textbook will be available in Kindle? Well, the tesseract is a four-dimensional abstract cube. I thought there was something to do with space. I don't think it will be available on Kindle. The ASM has a love-hate relationship with Amazon, so I'm sorry. However, I mean,
Really? There's no online version?
There's a PDF which you can read on tablets and so forth. I guess that's good enough, right? It's not on the Kindle.
Isn't a Kindle a tablet?
Yeah, but you need a Kindle formatted document to read on. I don't think you can read a PDF. Maybe you can. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. But if you can read a PDF on a Kindle, then it's already available. You can buy it as a PDF, yeah. Watch TWIV 861 about reverse zoonotic theory. What makes folks think of mice and not one of the many other species? Why not cats? Because the evolutionary trajectory is, if you look at the mutational spectrum, which is all the kinds of mutations in the phylogenetic trees, it looks like a virus in mice rather than other species. They actually did that comparison in the paper.
Really? Since when have they sampled a cat?
Some cats have been... There was a figure with some cats in it. Yeah? But anyway, if you listen to the next TWIV, you'll find out the New York City wastewater story, where they also found cryptic SARS-CoV-2, and one of their theories... you know, what's interesting is they find them in certain boroughs of New York, but not others. And the most numerous animals... And they looked in the sewage samples for ribosomal RNA, and they found mostly rat and mouse ribosomal RNA, but not in every borough. It's pretty localized. So it's not at all clear. They admit that it could be a mouse or a rat, or it could be a human, a chronically infected, immunocompromised human. So I think if you listen to the TWIV, which will be out tomorrow, you will hear them say, we don't know which it is. It's either animals or some human. But interestingly, this is the point. The cryptic viruses, the cryptic sequences are absolutely only in certain wastewater treatment plants, which serve certain neighborhoods of New York City. So whatever it is not crossing to other people. Okay? So apparently any program Ding is on is not worth tuning into. Disappointed at Hotez. Well, Amy can talk about disappointment, right?
Yeah.
So the reason Hotez said he doesn't agree with lifting mask mandates is N95 is as good as 3 mRNA vaccines. This is such BS. Really, can you take off the mRNA vaccine? I think Peter is not speaking clearly. What do you think, Amy?
Speaking or thinking?
Thinking.
Yes, not thinking clearly.
Why don't you invite Rob Malone and see what's his problem? I'm not interested in his problem. Inviting him to TWIV will give him a forum for his nonsense. And I know some folks here don't like it when I just blanket say nonsense without getting specific, but I don't want to give him time. There's plenty of other things to talk about. What do you think, Amy, right? Is that the right decision?
Yeah, I think he has a large enough platform to spew out misinformation from Joe Rogan and various others. And I'm not clear that there's any dialogue that you can have with him in which he will be open-minded enough to accept certain facts as facts.
So Vanity Nutrition said someone nominated Peter Hotez for Nobel. Anybody can nominate someone for a Nobel. There is no chance in hell that Hotez will get a Nobel Prize. He didn't do anything. Hey, Amy, it's just kitchen chemistry.
Yes, that's what I understand. And
So
neither one of them won the Nobel Prize. It was considered not a fundamental.
So someone asked, as Albert saying, what do you think of Salk's vaccine? And Sabin said, Salk didn't do anything. He didn't invent anything. It's just kitchen chemistry. And neither one got a Nobel, even though Sabin was nominated multiple times. And you can read about this in Erling Norby's book, by the way. Salk, on the other hand, was nominated once, and he was so dissed at the meeting that he was never nominated again. By Sven Gard, who was the chair of the committee for a while, he said, this person has done nothing to deserve our attention. Kind of insulting, right? But yeah. And so Peter Hotez will not get a Nobel Prize. And I don't have to be Amy to say that and be right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sabin had Sabin had a large amount of distractors.
Detractors?
Yeah.
People that didn't like him. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Sometime
and
I have to... Go ahead.
I'm not sure that I don't think he's actually the first one who thought of to rapidly passage the virus. I think Hillary Kaprowski did that first.
Well, the attenuation by passage was Max Tyler, right? He got a Nobel Prize for that.
Right, but he did it for Tyler's virus.
He did it for yellow fever virus. That's the vaccine is based on his passage, yeah.
Yeah. But I think I think Hillary Kaprowski did it first.
For polio,
there were trials Hillary Kaprowski ran a trial for the oral polio vaccine like at the end of the 40s.
Yeah,
with
Hillary
kids
in
a mental institution.
Yes. Hillary was ahead.
No, I have the book at home.
I gave it to you to read?
Yeah.
The one that he autographed?
Who are we talking about?
Kaprowski's autobiography.
Oh, no. I'm talking about David's book.
Now, I want to read a little passage from it. It's really good. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Yeah, here we go. It's called "Listen to the Music: The Life of Hillary Kaprowski."
Yeah.
Okay, and here
Ian alludes to it all the time.
He signed it. He says, "To my friend Vince, with warmest regards, Hillary." And so, I don't like Vince. And I just wanted to read this one thing. It was towards the end of a cold January in 1948 at Letterly Labs. Hillary Kaprowski and his assistant, Thomas Norton, are at work. The night turns the big windows into mirrors that multiply a glittering confusion of chemical glassware, colorful fluids, microscopes, but it is a simple wearing blender over which Kaprowski and Norton are bending, measuring out the ingredients of a very special cocktail. And a gruesome cocktail it promises to be. The two men spoon bits of grizzly cotton rat spinal cord and brain tissue into the blender. Cold, greasy stuff that has been infected with a particular strain of polio. It's a live attenuated mixture. Thomas Norton flips on the blender. He and Kaprowski frown as it whirs. Norton reaches out a hand to steady the blender. Then he switches it off. Kaprowski carefully pours 1 cc of the cold grayish suspension into each of 2 small graduated glass beakers. It's an oily glop. The two men pick up the beakers, study the contents, and they drink it. They look at each other over the rims. When he can speak, Norton asks, "Have another?" "Better not," Kaprowski says. "I'm driving." How frickin' perfect is that?
Yeah, I told you he did. I told you he did it before Sabin.
And so that was they passaged this in cotton rats, a polio strain, to attenuate it, and they drank it themselves, which back then you could do. Got something for me to drink, Amy?
No, not today. I'm not brewing anything today.
No attenuated
today
viruses.
Today is plaque assays.
All right, back to questions. I'm sorry. Here's Tesseract. Why is OAS such a big deal with influenza? Is H1N1 so different that there's no cross-reactivity with H3N2 for CD8 and thus no serious disease protection? So yes, that's very different. And so are the internal proteins. And then OAS happens to be, with all these interferon-induced proteins, there are over 1,000 of them. And Amy will agree, I'm sure, that some inhibit some viruses and some inhibit others. So it just so happens that OAS hits flu, right? What do you think of that, Amy?
Yeah. It also hits, it's also Susan Weiss's second favorite protein. It hits coronas.
Yeah, Susan Weiss really likes it. Yep.
I think it's equivalent to RNA cell.
Yeah, she likes RNA cell a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. She also but she's not as fond of ADAR as she is of all of those, but she likes ADAR.
Have you read the paper, the medRxiv, SARS-CoV-2 can induce HERV envelope expression in cells with individuals with symptomatic and severe COVID? Yeah, I saw it. I mean, I don't think it means anything. So HERV is a human endogenous retrovirus. It's part of all of our genomes. It went there many, many thousands of years ago. And many things can induce its expression. So I'm not at all surprised that virus infection can, and it means nothing. It's just an observation. What do you think, Amy?
Ranks right up there with SARS-CoV-2 being integrated in the genome.
Yes, exactly right. Oh, here's Frank. Thanks for coming, Frank. Good to have you. Thanks for moderating. Is there a persistence of viral antigens on host cell surfaces without virus particle shedding that could trigger the cytokine storm? Well, yeah, there's some spike on the membrane, right? Even though most of the spike is directed to internal membranes for budding internally, some of it does get to the PM. So yeah, and certainly antigen-presenting cells could have it as well. I'm not sure that's what itself triggers the storm. What do you think, Amy?
I don't think antigen-presenting cells, unless it's coming from the vaccine, have it, because it's not a target of viral infection.
What receptors do the other 4 common cold coronas use for cell entry?
DPP?
Dipeptidopeptidase. One of them is actually sialic acid, and one of them is ACE2, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
One of them is a fancier. One of them is something fancy.
What does that mean, like cashmere?
Yeah, it's cashmere. It means the name has like 47 different letters that I can never remember what the name is.
I'm going to tell you exactly what these receptors are because I have up in front of me the relevant slide from my virology course. Folks, it's a really good course. You should check it out. Anyway, that's pretty much. Oh, here they go. So 229E is aminopeptidase N, not dipeptyl. NL63 is ACE2. OC43 is sialic acid. I don't know what the fourth one is. But MERS,
DPP,
by the way.
DPP for MERS.
MERS is DPP, but the fourth common cold corona. I don't know what that is. But that's okay. You get the picture. 2 cases of Lassa have been identified in the UK. Oh, so these are most certainly imported from Africa, where it regularly infects thousands of people a year. And it is the virus is resident in rodents, and they spill over regularly into people because rodents invade their homes and causes a hemorrhagic fever, causes a lot of deaths. And so this is certainly imported because the right mice are not in the UK to carry that virus. What do you think?
Yes.
My friend tells me vaccines are poison. Can you let me know exactly what is in the mRNA vaccine?
mRNA and fat.
Various lipids, polyethylene glycol, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go to the approval page on the FDA site, you will find exactly what is in all of them. The package insert tells you what's in it, right? Do you want me? Should I get the package insert?
Sure.
Spikevax, which has been licensed, by the way. Spikevax
Yeah, I
package.
know. They changed the name to Spikevax.
Do you like that name?
Very original.
Okay, here it is. They tell you all the adverse reactions that they saw in the clinical trials. Want to see if they tell you what's in it on the package insert. They might not, actually. All right, it's many pages. Let me just go through it quickly here. What was that it there? No. It's a very comprehensive document. So there's a variety of lipids, and you can find out what they are, although I'm not being successful at finding them. No, it wasn't in there, so I don't want to take any of your time. But Amy and I have, and millions of other people have taken this vaccine. And I'm pretty okay. I guess you might say I'm not for being here every week, but I am okay. How about you, Amy? Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Director of CDC says the science has changed on the virus. Maybe they are just catching up to the science. Well, according to Amy, they lost their internet connection for 6 months. Maybe that explains it. I'm sorry I stole your joke. That's such a good one. I can't.
It's fine. It's not mine. Everybody can use it. Yes. It was not working well there.
Paul Offit asserted that the Israeli fourth boosters might be weakening or compromising vaccine efficacy. Did you hear this, Amy?
No.
Why would it
really?
weaken?
Paul Offit said something like that?
Well, he says we don't need a fourth booster.
Well, we
right?
don't.
We don't. But why would he say that it's compromising vaccine efficacy?
Maybe because there is not a statistical significant difference between the fourth and the third, that when you put it all together, it reduces the efficacy. You have to be over a certain amount to either leave the efficacy the same or bump it up. And if you're under it, it could be a negative. That's the way math works.
Okay. I do have some interesting T-shirts that I wear mainly on weekends. And I've got a lot of cool sciencey T-shirts. I don't have a Metallica T-shirt, although I do like Sandman. Do you like Sandman, Amy?
Yeah.
Why don't we have herpes virus vaccines? Amy, why don't we have herpes virus vaccines?
It's very hard to make a herpes virus vaccine.
Yes, but why?
Too many glycoproteins, too many potential receptors, plus it's latent. It's very hard.
I think it has to be sterilizing, because if a little virus gets through, it will become latent and then you're done, right?
It's never going to be sterilizing.
Yeah, it's the same with an HIV vaccine. Unless you get every particle, some are going to get through and establish latency, and then that's it. So I think that's part of the problem with herpes. But I'm sure they'll try mRNA vaccines.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter what platform you use. It's the antigen. And if you're using the repetitive antigens that we've already tried, it's not going to work.
Of course, absolutely. How does the lipid nanoparticle gain access to the cell? Okay, Amy, go for it. It gets injected into you, and then the lipid is close to your cell membrane, and since it has a similar enough composition that it thermodynamically can fuse with the membrane. It can also be taken up by phagocytosis or endocytosis, I presume, right?
Well, it would have to be taken up by phagocytosis, because I think it's pretty large and it's non-specific.
Yeah, so macrophages and antigen-presenting cells in general could take it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tesseract is basically a fourth dimension cube. I'm sending you an email right now. Thanks. I'll read it on the train. Thank you, Sylvia, for your contribution. Yes, Tesseract is a way to travel in a wrinkle in time. I read some of that book. Yeah. Yes. Did you read A Wrinkle in Time, Amy?
No.
Oh, apparently it's lunchtime in Australia. Okay, there you
That's
go.
what I said.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you see Eric Lander was harassing his team? I'm not surprised. He doesn't suffer fools. And if he thinks you're dumb, he'll tell you. What do you think of that, Amy?
I think that he is very blunt and very honest, and I think that people sometimes it's personal, but most probably it's about the quality of the work or the science, and they take it as a personal offense.
Sorry, California's 3 hours, not 6. My bad. Yes. Sorry about
Just
that.
takes 6 hours to get there.
Yes, maybe that's what I was thinking. Do you have any thoughts on whether an almost 5-year-old should wait to get a more efficacious over 5-year-old dose, or ASAP get under 5-year-old less efficacious dose? What do you think, Amy?
I'm never one to promote lying of age in order to get something.
Yeah, Amy's not a liar. I think you ought to wait and get it at the right age. I think Daniel would say that also.
And I heard today that it's being discussed at the FDA next week.
What
The Pfizer vaccine for 2 to 5.
I see, right. And they're the only one that have 5 to 12 so far, right?
Yes.
By the way, we will be, I don't know about Amy, I'll be in Madison, Wisconsin in July for a meeting. If anyone wants to meet up at a pub, I hear you have those. Maybe you have some beer there. We can have a chat one night. Are about viral proteins that are normally glycosylated, sometimes always never glycosylated before samples go to proteasomes. If sometimes always, do the peptides remain glycosylated? Do you know the answer, Amy? So if a secreted protein gets shunted to the proteasome, is it going to be glycosylated?
It's already been glycosylated because the glycosylation occurs in the ER.
I have to get a drink of water. Can you take the next protein, please?
Well, I don't see the question, so I don't know.
Oh, you don't see them at all? Oh, okay. I can't
No.
go get water. Okay, no problem. What's the exact name of the Smile Amazon charity donation page? There are lots of incubator-named charities. Seriously, there are incubator-named charities. That's funny. Smile.amazon.com, right? And you should hit the get started. And no, I don't want it. It should be Microbe TV. Should be it. I can't do it right now, but that's what I know. Can we program viruses to attack cancer cells?
Yes. We have a patent form that we were supposed to fill out, and then they quickly said, don't touch it. Don't fill it out.
Yeah, we have an interesting way of not we, but another company's way, right, for targeting a virus to a cancer cell. But there are other ways too, yeah. And people are working on new ones all the time, yeah. Thank you for your contribution, H. Zoo. 8th day since you were diagnosed. Blood pressure is elevated. I don't know anything about elevated blood pressure being specific to Omicron. Do you?
No.
I thought you were vaccinated. Must have a mild infection, right? You don't have to. You don't have to answer. That's confidential medical information. I understand. Do you think we are in a better spot with Delta with vaccine preventing more infections? We were in a better spot. Or with Omicron with higher case counts but lower mortality rates, or is there no difference? What do you think?
I don't. What is the question?
So were we in a better spot with Delta, with the
No,
vaccine preventing more infections, or with Omicron with higher case counts but lower mortality, or is there no difference?
no, we're not in a better spot. No. So first of all, the vaccine is fully protective against Omicron. We just measure IgG in the serum. We seem to be focused only on IgG, so no. And if you and we have more people theoretically vaccinated than we did when there was a Delta wave. It's not clear to me that all of the severity of the Delta is really due to the virus versus the lack of uh, vaccinated and immune percentage of the population at that time.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's no difference, although the epidemiologists will say there is. But
Yeah, I know. I
think
listened to an epidemiologist today tell me stuff that didn't make that. I was just like, really? This is what the government is giving the CDC a gazillion dollars to do? Hey,
which antivirals for COVID will be the least likely to develop resistance, and on this line, would molnupiravir be more effective post-exposure? Do you have? So we don't have that many antivirals. We have molnupiravir and Paxlovid, right?
right.
So
Although Stacy Cherry and Matt Freeman just published a new one.
yeah, I saw that. It wasn't Sarah Cherry on that paper?
Yeah, that's who I meant. Did I say Stacy?
Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah, now I meant Sarah.
Some pyrimidine inhibitor or something, right?
Yeah.
Synthesis. Yeah. Anyway, Amy thinks that we're not going to get resistance to molnupiravir, right?
Well, we have not seen it's not really directly at the viral protein. It's got to be metabolized into an active form, right?
It's correct.
So I think it'll be harder to get resistance against it than it will be for something that binds directly to the protease.
Yeah, I think we'll see
And
protease
I
resistance.
think that historically, although it was pretty easy, isn't AZT similar where you have to modify it? Or
yeah.
is that the herpes? Or maybe I'm thinking about the thymidine kinase inhibitor.
Well,
which
they
is
both
a
they both have to
nuclear
be they have to be phosphorylated, of course. But the TK phosphorylates acyclovir, and it's not done by a cellular enzyme. So, but you still get resistance to that. I think protease resistance is going to come quickly. People are telling me to get a glass of water. I have to go, Amy.
Okay.
Here, answer this one. Does the vaccine offer more broad protection to variants than infection-acquired immunity, and if so, how? I'll be right back.
No, the vaccine does not offer more immunity to variants than acquired immunity. It was a mistake that anybody who said that thought that. They shouldn't have said that. It's not correct. Turns out that infection offers a great deal of immunity. So I don't really know. So what is this Jacob Friedman person about how big is Dick? How big is Dick? What is this? Are we like 4 years old on the playground measuring our penis size?
Magic water.
I see.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for your contribution to the incubator. Any thoughts on this article in the Times? Younger Americans benefited less from booster shots than older people. Any thoughts, Amy?
I read the article.
And what do you think?
I think that there's an agenda by the author.
Yes.
and I think it was written very one-sided, and maybe kind of skipped or uh, left out a few tidbits of information.
So what is it based on that they didn't benefit from the boosters? How do we know this? I mean, they
So
have
it's based on like the idea that they don't like you. There's not a significant amount of severe disease to begin with in kids, and so really the boosters didn't really lower it statistically significantly.
I see. Okay. I'd like to see the data in a publication, not in the New York Times. It's my general feeling, Jeff, about that. And I think Amy would agree.
Yeah, I think that when you just look, I think when you just quantitating severe disease, I'm not sure that that's the right metric to begin with.
You are the virus oracle, apparently.
Who?
You're Amy, the virus oracle.
Oh, okay.
Did you know that?
I did not know. Now I do.
Can kimchi prevent COVID, Amy?
Fermented cabbage?
Yep. I don't
No.
think so. All right. Here's one. Aside from rabies, are there any communicable viruses that suburban animals, rabbit, squirrel, fox, coon, have that transmit commonly to humans? Not commonly, but you left out mice, which are suburban animals, right, Amy? Aren't they suburban?
I don't live in suburbia, but yes, I would assume that they're suburban.
Well, don't mice shop at J. Crew and all that stuff?
Yes, I see them. I see them at Saks trying on, Manolos all the time.
The thing is, Theodore, we only know about disease. So hantavirus occasionally spills over from mice into people, but there haven't been that many cases, a handful of cases a year maybe in the U.S. But I'm sure other viruses spill over, but we just don't look for them and they don't make people sick. That's what I think. So apparently you can get a PDF on a Kindle. According to Doreen,
That's
it works.
Great.
Very good. Thank you. And Calix, Yukon, thank you for your contribution. Incubator Funds, thank you very much. I got myself a water boiler at the incubator yesterday so I can make tea. I can make lemon tea so I don't have a scratchy throat when I record. You think that's a good plan, Amy?
Sounds good.
Daniel said on the last clinical update that this is a 3-dose vaccine. But you've said that the 3rd dose is really the second being put at the right time. So is it a 2 or 3 dose? Well, it's licensed now as a 3-dose vaccine, right? I think if you got and one of the papers Amy sent me this week said if you get 2 doses spaced properly apart, you get great immunity, right, Amy?
Yes.
So, they don't want to admit they made a mistake. Whereas I would easily admit it. So, but that doesn't matter. Thank you, Datebio, for your contribution. How frail should we consider our immune system after mostly isolating, working from home, kids home over the past 2 years? We're otherwise healthy. I think your immune system is fine. You're not free of being assaulted with various microbes. Your home is full of them. So Amy, do you think your immune system is, well, you're traveling everywhere, so it doesn't apply to you.
No, it doesn't apply to me. But no, I think we'll be in for a big surprise about what antibodies people have, especially through the Premise Project. I think we'll be in a big surprise.
Now, so your immune system is just great. My cat died from.
Great?
Immune system is just great. My cat died from severe respiratory illness as she picked up from the yearly vet visit. Oh, I'm so sorry,
Not so
Marty. I'm
good.
very sorry. 7 days and she was gone. 4-year-old baby, probably COVID. I'm very sorry. Doesn't it suck when you get a nosocomial infection?
Yeah. All right, it's 9:10, so like three more because I have to put overlay and plate out my healers. And I
Okay.
wanted to set up my ELISA with my new hybridomas, but I guess that's not happening.
Why not?
Because I'll get tired and I still haven't eaten dinner,
Okay.
and
All right. We'll let you
then
go.
it'll be worse if I set it up and I make a mistake than if I just postpone it half a day until tomorrow morning
Yeah.
and
Good
do it
plan.
right.
Okay. All right. We'll let you go in 3 questions. So this is not a question. When tigers died in the zoo, I worried for my little house cats. Doesn't look like anyone is addressing the idea of protecting our pets, though dogs seem okay with the virus. Um, I'm not sure. I think there might be veterinary vaccines in development. Do you know of any, Amy?
I don't know. You have to talk to the lady you had on Twiff from the San Diego Zoo.
Could you please explain why people are testing positive with PCR tests 4 weeks after infection? Are they safe to take care of elderly even if they still test positive? Amy.
Yes, virus RNA persists for a very long time, and we've underappreciated how long RNA from acute and viral infections persists. It's not making any virus.
Yep.
You know,
Agreed.
I learned that this they rediscovered this for in Lemon's lab again for HAV. No, they did. So, like, he showed these lovely curves yesterday about infected mice, and they went out like 60, 90 days, and you see, like, there's like no, there's like a spike of virus, then it like goes down, and then they do it by RT, and then like 60 days, they see like a spike of RNA or something, and then like ALT comes up and stuff. Yeah. And they can do immunohistochemistry, I think, from these mice, and they can see, yeah,
Did you see the preprint about SARS-CoV-2 reproduction in testes?
yes,
What are your thoughts on that?
it's, yeah,
There's no
yeah,
infectivity assay,
yeah.
but we know
I'm
Zika virus
like,
can reproduce in testes. So can Ebola virus. It's an immunoprivileged site, right?
sure,
Okay.
I'm not buying it.
Okay. All right, Vince. I think John Dennehy, who was on Twiv yesterday, is from is it Queens College, thinks it's long-term care facilities. I'm wondering if it is circulating in a prison population. It would have to be someone immunosuppressed who is infected for a long period of time, 6 to 9 months, something like that, because we know that those individuals can accumulate lots of unusual mutations. But we had a big discussion about how many such people you would need to make a sewage treatment plant positive, right? And one person said grams, which is a lot.
Sounds like a lot.
Is there any other known coronavirus that readily infects so many different mammal species like SARS-CoV-2 does? I don't know of any. Do you?
No,
Of course, aware. Aware. How many that you're aware of? I think that's the key word. We're not aware of. That might be, but we just don't look for it. Now, who's looking for common cold coronaviruses in rodents, right?
well, I don't think they walk around with a sign that says I'm a common cold coronavirus.
No, you have to sample them. All right. Mark says, Amy, how much money can we raise for you to go on Rogan?
You would need to raise approximately $5 million.
Not happening.
Okay.
Why? Because you don't want to go on? You'd be great.
No, because for me to go on Rogan, it would require him to make a donation to the lab, and I need $5 million. That's
So,
the amount of donation that he would have. That's the amount of funds he would have to donate the lab for me to put up with his crap and be nice to some degree.
I think he's going to do that. So it's basically making it impossible.
Exactly. It's kind of a challenge, right? Hey, he got $100 million from Spotify to like do his shtick where he can use the N word and the company doesn't really care, and he can spew out a lot of miscommunication, and again the company doesn't care. So and that's not even including all the advertising that goes into this crap and stuff. So $5 million for us to be financially secure as a lab for a while is
Okay.
a drop in the bucket. He's not going to miss.
All right, two more questions. These are two ones you would like to take. First of all, a number of jurisdictions are starting to lift restrictions. What mandates or restrictions would lift, and what signals would you look for to remove mandates, like percent vaccinated population or what?
So that was also discussed today by somebody who was the former health commissioner or health head of the health department in Chicago, and it's been ongoing since your governor came out and said he was not renewing the mask mandate, and which, excuse me,
Bless you.
thank you. And the governor of New York is not renewing the mask mandate and stuff. So you'd have to look at case numbers, but unlike the review that was, or the commentary that was published today in JV that talks about an R naught by someone that you are writing a chapter with.
I wrote a textbook with years ago.
Yes, but now you're writing a field chapter.
It's done.
Okay, well now you've written a field chapter with him. So he talks about an R naught being under 1, and it's like, buddy, get it together. There's no such number. So you would need to have, but she only talks about what is in the area that you're going to remove the mask mandate for. And
Yes.
I think that is short-sighted. You have to look at the areas surrounding or that traffic into it. Like, if New York City were to remove its mask mandate before New Jersey, Connecticut, and the rest of this, and, Westchester did, it would be stupid because all those people are coming in or all those people go out into those areas, right? Because that's how New York City thrives. It's on a commuter basis, right? So you could say New York City was at less than 1, but New Jersey was at 5. So then you're just bringing it into New York City, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely.
So you would have to have a certain circumference around the area that you want to remove the mandates for, that has greater than 75% vaccination coverage and has a reduced thing for, I don't know, 14 to 21 days of less than one case per 100,000.
Okay. I agree. That's a good point. All right, one more, okay?
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying? It's not just about that specific area,
Sure,
right? Because
surrounding
people
areas,
go in and out.
Yeah, which is usually the case, right?
Right, but they weren't. But they only focused. But her answer only focused in on what that area was.
Exactly.
But like, if you make it for New York City, if you took it away, and the case counts in New Jersey are at 5, and the case counts are at 10 per 100,000 in Connecticut, then you're just reintroducing it into New York City.
All right, one more. Are virologists keeping an eye on possible T-cell exhaustion with multiple boosters or infections, or is it a full of crap, big Twitter topic?
It's a big,
What do you think?
full of crap Twitter topic. I think Alessandro and Shane would agree.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I'm not an immunologist, but it looks like nonsense. You have to really be careful. Twitter tends to amplify things
Well,
randomly,
it
whether
amplifies a lot of nonsense, and
it does.
unfortunately, many members of the scientific community participate.
But not Amy.
No, it's amazing. I have 1,100 Twitter followers, and I've tweeted twice.
People just like to follow you.
Apparently so.
They like you. I bet a lot of the people tonight follow you.
I
And
don't know.
maybe one year you will tweet something and they'll go,
I
"Way,
know
look at that."
you would say to me, so like if I had said this to you like 2 days ago, you would have said to me, well, you should tweet about your TWIF on Friday, blah, blah, blah. Really, like I'm going to tweet about my TWIF. I didn't even tweet when the paper came out.
Amy's coming on Twiv Friday to talk about her paper that was just published a few weeks ago. Very interesting stuff. So make sure you listen.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, so I'm not a good tweeter.
You need a tweet person. You need a social media person. But people want to hear it from you. They don't want a person.
I was gonna say if I need a social media person, then I should be fired from Twitter land. You have to do it yourself.
I like that. That's very good. Or do you want to stop? Is that enough?
Yeah, I have to go. I have to do my
Okay.
cells and put my overlay on, and then yeah.
By one more thing, Animal Party said, "Thank you, Amy, for introducing her to Santiago Ramon y Cajal."
Yeah,
She
the
loves his
neuron
art.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sent me an update of her painting of EV68. It's looking pretty spiffy.
Excellent. By the way, what's your Twitter handle, Amy?
ABR22,
That's it?
or maybe it's Amy Virologist.
Yeah, it's Amy Virologist.
Yeah, I think it's Amy Virologist Amy Virologist at ABR22.
Yeah. Okay. If
And
somebody
underneath
wanna follow.
it says Twitter for professionals. Like, what do you need? What do you need Twitter for professionals? Like, really? There's a professional Twitter person? Like, seriously. It's like so strange. All right. I gotta
Thank you,
go.
Amy. Bye. See you tomorrow. Or talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.
See you
I'll
Friday.
talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Somehow we have to find a way to get Amy to stay later, but she's busy. The only way... Oh, no. I don't know how to do it. Start earlier? Malone is no amateur and he needs high-quality opposition. I understand. I could give him very high-quality opposition because he's not an amateur, but he really doesn't know virology. I can tell that. But I just don't want to spend the time. Some people have already countered him pretty well, I think. Israel study, low vitamin D, more severe COVID. I've been taking vitamin D since the beginning of the pandemic when a doctor, actually a doctor who treats ME/CFS patients, I was on a program with her. She recommended that, and so I have been taking, vitamin D. So if you can't get in the sun, which I don't do much, I'm inside most of the day. Now, someone said I should get more exercise, but I do. I run around a lot. You have no idea how much I run around. So I think that's enough exercise for me. What was it here? Is there a Nobel Prize for kitchen chemistry? No, that's the Ig Nobel Prize, right? Okay, I was in Coxsackie last night. That's funny. My mistake. Yeah, who goes to Coxsackie, New York on purpose? I guess the people who live there. So Coxsackie, New York, I showed a slide. I show a slide in my virology course of Coxsackie exit 21B on the New York State Thruway. This is where Coxsackie virus was first discovered. And at the time, 1947, they didn't care if you named a virus after your town. Only later did we get sensitive about that. So that's cool. That's cool that you were there. And by the way, Nobel Prizes have gone mistakenly to people. Some are mistakes, but you can't take them back. Have I read Vaccinated by Maurice Hilleman? Yeah, I have, actually. I have, this is funny, I have 2 copies here for some reason. I don't know. People send me books, and I've read both of them. I haven't read both of them. I've read it. Why would I read both of them? I'm just trying to see if one is autographed. No. Yeah, I've read it. It's very good. One Man's Quest to Defeat the World's Deadliest Diseases by Paul Offit. Paul is a very good writer. He's written a bunch of good books. Really nice. I envy him having the time to do that. Oh, yes, I saw this today. The New York Times just fact-checked Malone and destroyed him. So I don't need to do it. Just go to the New York Times. I mean, it's what they want to do for a living, the New York Times. It's fine. I don't want to do that. Frankly, I have more fun talking to intelligent people about the correct science and talking to folks like you who have great questions. I have to say, Otez is still a good guy. All right, so I'm on the board of Parasites Without Borders. I'm one of the officers, and so is he. And I've interviewed him several times for TWIV. He just doesn't, he's a publicity guy, okay? You can tell. He's not a bad person, no, but he doesn't always do the right thing. Your grandfather went to medical school with Salk, so that would be NYU Medical, right? Yeah. Thank you for your contribution. Really appreciate it. And your contributions have built the incubator. It's still being built, and I want to improve it, but I couldn't have done it without all of you. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. What was I going to say? Tomorrow, Daniel is coming to record our weekly update. So usually he does it remotely, but he wants to come in more, and I'm going to try and figure out some kind of seating arrangement where we can look at each other and have cameras going, something. All right, so that's what I have to do tomorrow. What's the deal with long-term COVID smell issues? So if you looked at the challenge study results, a good fraction of the people who had infection got loss of smell. And it's because the virus is reproducing in the support cells for the neurons in the olfactory mucosa. And most of them recovered, but one did not. So what's the issue there? Why is it a persisting? I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows. It must damage the cells to the extent that they can't recover. And why, I'm sure people will sort out. That's the kind of thing that people are interested in, but we don't know right now. Cocktail chemistry is better than kitchen chemistry. Indeed. And Amy, there's some questions for Amy, but she's gone. I'm sorry. She'll be back next week. Try the veal. My wife and I have 2 doses, booster and infection immunity. My son's wife and child are unvaccinated. Their toddler is in an unvaccinated play group. What protocol makes sense to see them indoors? So here's the story, and I've said this a lot. Vaccination for sure cuts down your transmission potential. Exactly how, we don't know, because people haven't done the right studies looking at shedding of infectious virus, okay? They're mostly epidemiological studies, which are not definitive. But it's quite certain, looking at the decrease in infectious viral load shed from vaccinated patients, that transmission must be impacted. How much, we don't know. So the possibility is that you and your wife, even though you're extensively immune, could still get infected and maybe shed for a day. So the best protocol is for you to wear a mask. It'd be great if they did too, but it sounds to me like they're not going to want to. Are we thinking boosted people transmit less? As I just said, there's no good science on it. And Peter Hotez will say, yeah, vaccinated people transmit without thinking. Okay, I don't want to knock Peter Hotez or anybody, but you can't just say, yeah, because you've heard WHO or CDC say it. You have to look at the data. And when you do that, the data don't support it. We just don't know. I think it must be less because the one study where they looked at infectious virus shedding in vaccinated versus unvaccinated people, it's much lower in vaccinated people. The problem is we don't know how much you need to transmit. So lots of unknowns here. And so please don't make conclusions when there's so many unknowns. That's all I'm asking you. Is drinking polio bad for you? Well, if it's a vaccine, no. And they were trying to make a vaccine strain, but it was experimental. They were passaging it through cotton rats, a rodent, right? And they shouldn't have been drinking the ground up brains, but back then you did stuff like that. They were okay, but yeah, you can drink polio vaccine and you'll be fine. So, but if you drink a wild type polio virus, then you could get paralyzed. Oh, by the way, and Les pointed this out, I wanted to bring this up. So T-cell exhaustion is a thing with HIV, yes. And it's a thing with cancer also. And that's where checkpoint therapy can help, because checkpoint therapy will reverse the T-cell exhaustion. And that's a strategy for treating cancers. It could also be a strategy for a virus infection where T-cell exhaustion is a thing. Who's doing good research on cancer treatments? Oh, many people are. Understand this is not my field, so I can't just roll off the names. But in my opinion, the CAR T-cell, the CAR NK cell, the CAR macrophage therapies are terrific, and they're getting better all the time. There are many people who are developing viruses as vectors. So I think we're going to treat a lot of cancers in 10 years with viruses. I'm very big on that one. Thank you, Kent, for your contribution to the incubator. Any differential in longevity protection between vector vaccines versus mRNA? Well, I think you probably know the answer is that it's not long enough. I mean, longevity in the time we've been using them is okay. And really we have to qualify, right? So when you first get a vaccine, you have very high antibody and T-cell levels, and then those begin to contract. But the important thing is whether you have memory B cells and memory T cells. And studies are now coming out showing that, yes, you do have memory B and T cells that last after immunization, even after infection. But this is only a couple of years, right? So you want to know how much longer. Is it going to be 5 or 10 years? Probably not longer than that, because mucosal infections typically don't induce that kind of longevity in terms of immunity, but it's too early, right? Can dormant virus inside our body be transmitted? For instance, Epstein-Barr virus. Well, yes, if it's reactivated, yes, they are. That's, in fact, why they are reactivated from dormancy, so they can transmit to a new host. Herpes virus, herpes simplex virus, cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr. All the herpes viruses have dormant latent phases where there's no infectivity, and then some trigger, they reproduce, and before the immune system can shut it down, they've shed and transmitted to the next person. Almost a perfect strategy. Remember the line from the Alien? The robot guy called the alien the perfect something, the perfect monster, the perfect being, because you couldn't get rid of it. Well, perfect strategy. Rogan's audience will mock our expertise. Yes, they do. And so what? That's fine if they want to mock and be foolish, but that happens all the time. With even Lex Fridman told me, don't talk about your expertise. People don't care about that. And my expertise is why I do all of this stuff. I could not do any of it without expertise. And the problem with the world is there's a lot of people do things and have no expertise. What is it? The demise of what is that book, right? The demise of expertise or something like that. Yeah, I understand that. But I ain't giving up, okay? I keep on pushing. So Aspie had H1N1 and nearly killed him, so viruses do not play. So when COVID came along, I didn't play either. So this is an interesting experience, because people who have had such experiences recognize that danger, and then people who have not say, it's nothing. It's just a cold. And, some people then die. They say, I'm not getting vaccinated. I made a choice, and then they die. And so I don't understand that, frankly. And it's hard to talk logic with that, right? I like Rogan. This is also good stuff. Why are they mutually exclusive? They're different audiences. I mean, I don't know how many people here listen to Rogan. I think Rogan would be fine if he didn't spew nonsense or have guests that spew nonsense. Why doesn't he have experts? Now he says he's going to have experts. We'll see, right? But why do you have to build a popular thing by spewing nonsense? That's the problem I have. Okay, and you will probably say there's a lot of stuff on Rogan that's fine. Okay, it's entertainment. But the science part, stay away from that. It's not your area. Okay, enough Joe. How protected do you think breastfed infants are, assuming the mother is vaccinated? Little, a lot, unknown. Thank you for giving me 3 choices. So the mothers certainly give antibodies to the babies in their breast milk. And I would say they have substantial protection against infection for perhaps 6 months, 4 to 6 months, and then after stopping breastfeeding, right? So at birth you get placentally derived transferred antibodies, and then you get it from breastfeeding. And so I think you are substantially protected, and but it doesn't last forever, and that's the problem. So, but it is a nice window. And if the child is infected in that time, we'll probably get a mild infection, but that infection will boost their immunity. And I think that's the future of COVID, that we're going to have this virus circulating all the time. It's going to infect kids at a time when they have antibodies from their mother. They'll be protected and then build up more robust immunity so that they'll get infected a lot in their lifetime but never get really seriously ill. Have you discussed the Remdesivir controversy? I don't know what the controversy is. Okay? Here's my view on Remdesivir from hearing about it and reading about it for 2 years. It saved some lives, but not that many. It's really expensive. It has to be given intravenously. If you give it too late, if you wait till someone goes into a hospital, so they turn up at the ER, they can't breathe, they have COVID, it's too late for Remdesivir, yet many places will still give you Remdesivir. You have to get Remdesivir when you're in the virus phase, when you still have virus levels reaching a peak in the respiratory tract. Then Remdesivir will knock it down and you'll get better. But it's an antiviral, so there's no point in giving it when there's very little virus around. And I don't think it's a controversy. The company makes a lot of money on it, and they're always trying to find ways to push it, right? But far better are orally deliverable antivirals, for sure. I was trying to explain how immunology works to my son. And then, natural immunity and how vaccine works. How or why is the efficacy memory of the vaccine waning? All right, so let's understand. So you get a vaccine against SARS-CoV-2. Your body makes a lot of antibodies and T cells, which last at pretty good levels for 4 or 6 months, and they slowly contract. And then you have memory in the form of B and T cells, and we know those are around. Those are generated by vaccination and infection, and they last. And then when you're infected, the virus actually enters you and begins to reproduce because antibodies are too low to prevent that infection. But after a while, the memory response is kicked in. You make antibodies and T cells, and that keeps you out of the hospital, keeps you from having severe disease. That's how vaccines work. So the antibody levels go down, so efficacy or effectiveness is the right word against infection goes down, but effectiveness against severe disease remains high. And that's important to understand. Maybe you could explain that to your son. What's going to happen now? UK is lifting all restrictions. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they decide to go back. I think it's okay because they have vaccines. You either take a vaccine or you're going to get infected. I think there is a point where you have to move society back into functioning stage because people are hurting, right? Yeah. Yes, so slide 4 on the coronas. You bet, Pete. You were in the course. Yeah, you got it. I'm teaching it now at Columbia. It's a lot of fun. If an Omicron-specific vaccine is produced, wouldn't we just have the same problem we have now if a non-Omicron lineage variant emerges? Yes. It makes zero sense. All right, so they are being produced, which is not a bad idea because so right now, protection against severe disease is very high, and it hasn't gone down. I don't care what study you've seen that says it's gone down. Overall, it has not. And at least for mRNA vaccines and some of the ad vectors vaccines. So if that changed, if the protection against severe disease starts to decline, then you might think of an Omicron or a variant-specific vaccine. And why is that? Here's what the thought is, but there isn't a lot of proof behind it. So let's say you're 6 months out of a vaccination and you get infected with Omicron. The vaccine, of course, is for the original SARS, the OG SARS-CoV-2. And you make a memory antibody response, but the antibodies are not so good at neutralizing virus because it's Omicron. It's different. And maybe it reproduces a little more and you get a little sicker, right? Before the T cells kick in, which don't give a damn about Omicron or any variant, they're going to kill your infected cells no matter what. So it's this idea that the evasiveness, the immune evasiveness of Omicron might lead to more severe disease, but it hasn't. But maybe the next variant will. We don't know that. So that's why it's worth keeping these in stock. But I agree with you. Once you go to a variant, then you start over again, a variant vaccine. And who's to say that you're not going to have selection for variants resistant to that? You will, most likely. So unless disease severity increases, I don't think that we need to use those. And I'm glad to hear that Kizzmekia Corbett agrees. Oh, the craziest virus I've ever had was norovirus. It was awful and yet somehow comical. And it's extreme levels of explosiveness. Yes, it's a 2-bucket disease. You throw up and you have diarrhea. What a combination. You need 2 buckets, folks. But the good part is it only lasts 2 days. But it's really not nice to throw up and have diarrhea for 2 days. No. Okay, why are there 2 FDA-approved vaccines for H5N1 influenza, but only 700 documented cases? Well, you have Michael Osterholm to thank for that, because he thinks it's going to become a pandemic virus. And so he scares the hell out of people to the point where they made a vaccine. This virus is not going anywhere. Mark my word. Yes, but it's just in case, right? So I don't want to have something happen in 10 years and not have a vaccine. So it's not a big deal, I think, but I doubt we're going to get there. Is there a reduction of CD8 and 4 cells after vaccination? I don't know why there would be, right? There would be initially an expansion and then a contraction later, which is normal. An article in the Atlantic argues to open everything and can call sanitation efforts performative as lab virologists do you see this as hygiene theater? So I never thought the sanitation efforts were useful. I think what's useful is vaccination, of course, and masks and distancing, air ventilation, but scrubbing things down. It is theater. Never been shown to be much value. What is my Nebraska talk going to cover? I have no idea, Jeff. It's still a ways away, and I will decide the week before. It's probably going to be a mix of science and communication. That's usually what people want to hear. I believe the students invited me, and so they're always inviting me because of my communication. And Amy's science recently has been fabulous, so I'll have a combination of the two. I don't even need to do Amy's science because the things I've done in my career with polio are very interesting, and most people don't know about them, so it's not like I'm repeating anything. And my advisor, Peter Palese, used to say, don't ever worry about repeating something. People can always handle you hearing things twice. It's true. Some say that rapid tests do not work because they know symptomatic people who test negative. How likely is it that symptomatic people test positive for such a short time that it's missed? It's very unlikely. I mean, there certainly are false negatives. That happens. But the rate, depending on the test, and not all tests are created equal, it's very rare. And I would be very careful about these kinds of anecdotal stories. Look instead at the reports that are published showing the reliability, and they're published on a regular basis. I've seen several just this week, right? I'm fully vaccinated and boosted. It took me 4 days after symptoms to test positive and 12 more days to test negative. Why so long? What kind of test? Rapid antigen? So there is a delay. And in fact, that is from the challenge study. There is a 2-day delay, I believe, from symptom onset to antigen positivity. So 4 days, there's always variability, and 12 days to test negative, antigen negative. Again, the protein is hanging around. There are lots of broken viruses around at the end of the infection, so I'm not surprised. I wonder what 99.9% of people asking what's in the vaccine can actually do with the information. Probably not much, but anti-vaxxers, the big guys like Mercola and so forth, they will tell you, oh, this is poison. This is poison. It kills rats and so forth. Of course, which is all nonsense. Open everything. I did an AMA on Reddit today. Anybody there? It was pretty quiet. Not as lively as it used to be. And yes, we should point out that sanitation is good for a lot of things, diseases, but not COVID. Not so much, yes. That's a good way to put it. Very calm, Ben, not like me, yes. There are people who receive 1 dose of Pfizer or Moderna and for whatever reason don't return for a second. Are they still protected? It depends if you're talking about Omicron. So I've seen some studies that say even 1 dose with long enough time, you get a good antibody response. So somewhat protected, but not fully as with 2 doses. And of course, if you get a natural infection, that could boost it as well. Now, Visto wants a mice, lion, monkeys exaggerate t-shirt. So there's a button there on Cafe Press. I could easily, since I have the art, I could put it on a t-shirt. Okay, let me do that. What's the best way for me to remember? There's no way for me. But I'm going to write it on a sticky right here in front of me. Mice, I could do that in like 5 minutes on the train tomorrow. Mice lie, monkeys exaggerate, t-shirt. Okay. Good idea. You got it. Offit said if the fourth dose is given too soon, it could cause immune system fatigue. Look, he's on Twiv. He said the fourth dose is not a problem because I asked him, "Can you have too many doses?" And I think I also asked Udell. He said, "No problem." Is there any reason to be concerned about vaccine effectiveness against the new Omicron BA.2? No more than Omicron. I mean, it's going to be displacing Omicron in some areas, but no, there is nothing there that tells me that it's any more evasive in terms of antibodies than Omicron was. So, this New Yorker wants to be best friends with Amy. Go ahead, get in touch. She lives there. Well, for now, maybe she'll be moving. Who knows? Brunch time in Japan. That's great. How can you explain that myocarditis after the vaccine are more prevalent in adolescent and young males? I think that's true. I think that's actually the case, and I don't know. Someone who's an expert on the heart might know why it would be more likely to happen. I mean, the question is that the case for COVID myocarditis, right? Is there's that same kind of age, sex bias? I just don't know. By the time Vincent gets to this comment, it will be afternoon siesta time. No, I got to it, and it's only 9:50 here. I'm trying to be efficient. My scroll bar says I'm almost halfway down. So, I'm trying hard. Oh, this is very interesting. Paul Offit has lately been playing in the hands of the mischievous crowd on the net. Fame is a truly double-edged sword. Yes, it is. People, you have to be very... Once you get fame, man, people get seduced by it, and they do all kinds of things to increase it, right? And I have to say, I don't give a damn about fame, but I do give a damn about teaching. I want to teach as many people as possible because there's nothing I like more than someone saying, I didn't know that. Thank you. I think that's the greatest line you could have. Are you in Wisconsin? Okay, I'll see you there. Yes, ASV, I don't know, sometime in July. You can check it out on asv.org. I'll be there for 5 days going to the meeting, and it's at the Monona Terrace, so I know right around there. Up the street is the Capitol building, right? And around that there are lots of restaurants and bars. But you guys know where they are. So just meet. Oh, what's the one down the street? They make their own beer, right? Bulldog or something like that. I've been there. That's a good one. People come in with gallons and get them filled up with beer and bring them home. Oh, my God. I guess the winters are hard. What kind of earpieces? I don't know. I don't know what they are. I want to say sure. Sure. They're not great. Why are they not great? Not comfortable. Sound is okay. I have much more comfortable ones at the incubator, but they're tinny. So I'm still searching. I mean, these were not cheap. These were $300. So I'm still searching, but I don't want to pop 300 here and there and try them out. No good. So anybody have a great earbud? These are in-ear monitors. They're wired. That's fine. They have to be wireless. But for sure, Paul Offit has integrity. I'm never doubting that. He's been on Twitter several times. He speaks the truth. I agree. And I don't actually know if fame is getting to his head or not. I doubt it. But he's maybe being taken in by certain people on the internet. And Microbe TV is the smile thing on Amazon. Yeah, just Microbe TV, one word. Microbe TV. Whiskey is actually better for your throat. I agree, but I had to go upstairs to get whiskey, and I don't need to get tipsy here for you guys. The best thing to do is have a little lemon tea. Really cuts the mucus, but I don't have it. But I did buy a tea maker for the incubator for that purpose. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Medicago coronavirus virus-like particle vaccine. You're a phase 3 trial participant. Turns out only 70% effective. All right, so I love this technology of Medicago. They do plant-based vaccines. They have an influenza one, which is not much better than the regular influenza vaccine, unfortunately. So, but the thing is, the technology is amazing. You can grow a lot of vaccine in a small number of plants, and so it's very cheap. Now, 70% is not impressive, and I wonder if they didn't adjuvant it properly or something like that. Should you leave the trial? How much time is left? If it's a significant amount of time, well, I mean, you want to get boosted, but not too close to the last one you've had. You should put 6 months between the last Medicago and whatever booster you get. So if that's going to be 5 months from now, just wait and then leave then. I see now where you texted Vanity to get me water. Was it really that bad? You know, I would soldier through because that's the way I am until I can't speak. But I've never gotten to the point about not being able to speak. Were you surprised that only 50% of the challenge study participants were infected? No, that's the dose they gave them. They gave them a very low dose of virus, right? 10 TCID 50s, which was 55 PFU, I think, or focus forming units. So I'm not surprised that only half got infected. If they had tenfold more virus, then they would have gotten maybe 90% infected. No, so that's the reason why, yeah. Thank you, Michael, for your contribution. Really appreciate it. Dr. Campbell stated today the fastest rollout of a vaccine was mumps. No, I don't think it was rolled out in less than a year. I don't think that's correct. But it's easy to check. In fact, Dr. Hilleman made the mumps vaccine. And let's see if there's a chapter. I mean, I'm sure Dr. Campbell looked it up and didn't just make something up, right? Here we go. Gerald Lynn, that's the mumps virus. Page 20. Yeah, so his daughter had mumps. And so 1966, the vaccine started to be distributed. Okay. So let's see. When did he get the virus from his daughter? Well, 2 years after Gerald Lynn walked into her father's bedroom, they did the trial. Okay, 2 years after. So Gerald Lynn was his daughter who got sick, walked into his bedroom, said, I don't feel well. He went and grabbed a swab at the company, swabbed her. And 2 years later, they're testing. So it's not the quickest rollout. Are you well aware of the reverse zoonotic effect infections? Yes, of course. Of course, the deer get it from us. We know that very well because we can see specific variants going from humans into the deer. Whether it goes back into humans, we don't know. But we should do surveillance to find out, right? What do you think about the Moderna early results showing the Omicron-specific vaccine is no more effective than the existing against Omicron? So I have that in my folder to read. I just downloaded it today. But it really depends what they're looking at. They're looking at infection or symptomatology. Because symptomatology, I would say that's not surprising because the original vaccine is very good at preventing severe COVID, and if this is not going to be any better, I don't see why it would be better. On the other hand, if they check the people very close after vaccination, it would be higher. So that would be surprising that it's not because it's close to vaccination. So we'll have to take a look at that and maybe talk about it. as on TWIV. So myocarditis from COVID is orders of magnitude higher, and it doesn't resolve as quickly. That's true. But why it's in this age and sex, that's the question which A.M. Rosa had, and which I don't think any knows the answer to. Thor's hammer was about molnupiravir, and one of the people who worked on it, whose name is completely escaping me. Anyway, he's coming on to TWIV to talk about it. He's at what do I want to say? Georgia State? No. What's the other one? Georgia Tech? No, Georgia State. Yeah, the other one down the road, right? And here's the smile link for Microbe TV. Thank you, Vanity, very much. Appreciate it. Do I have any thoughts or counterpoints to the claims that viruses don't exist and the criticisms of the definition of virus isolation? All right. So every day I get an email from someone who says, you're a great virologist. I respect you. Can you please tell me if viruses really exist? What the hell do you think I've been doing for 40 years? Do you think I'm just playing with fantasy? No. Of course they exist. How could I make a living on something that doesn't exist? Actually, I'm sure all of you could tell me how to do that. But of course they exist, and there's ample evidence. And a lot of people have this trope, which is we've never isolated this virus. We've never isolated that virus. Well, that's BS. I can tell you exactly how SARS-CoV-2 was first isolated and visualized and reproduced in cell culture, blah, 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 over and over. It's a waste of my time. These people are just getting a rise out of this stuff. It's a waste to even address it. But every day, I get the same kinds of emails from all different people. I don't get it. It's the same idea. Someone must be just churning them out. Let's see here. So the TWIV mug, which is right here, I don't mean to advertise, but this you can get something like this at cafepress.com/TWIV. We get $1 on each purchase. The point is not to make money, but for you to have cool TWIV swag, right? Now this is a tough question. What media group has done the best job of covering the COVID pandemic from a scientific point of view? So cover is a tough word, right? So there's different kinds of coverage. There's day-to-day coverage, and then there's longer-term, deeper thinking coverage, right? And so I'm very disappointed at the Times. I'm always seeing quotes from stories which just reflect an absolute failure to get the nuances, right? I think The Atlantic has done a very good job. I think Ed Yong is great, and Karen, what's her name? Chu? They're both very good, and they get it. But obviously they haven't done a huge amount of coverage. I'm not impressed with a lot of the coverage. I just think they don't get it, and I don't know why. I know why. Because it takes a long time to get the nuances, and they don't get it, and they say silly things. And you know what? It's not just them. It's people in the field as well. They just don't get it. Not that I get everything, but I just see this, and that's why I'm not impressed. And I don't tend to read a lot of mass media coverage as a consequence. I just go to the media, and I talk to my colleagues on TWIV, and Amy, of course. My husband got COVID. We're both Pfizer 3X. He still feels crummy. 2 weeks. Oh, you're done. You're done. You're fine. You're not transmitting anymore. What are the correct terms? Maturation affinity or somatic hypermutation is supposed to help create diversified antibodies. Well, they're both two different reflections of the same process. So somatic hypermutation is what happens in the germinal centers of the lymph nodes to give you mutated antibody genes, which give you then altered antibody proteins, which are then selected for maturation affinity. So they say it's a boot camp, right? They run them past the antigen, and the ones that can grab it the strongest, they stay, and the others are gone. And that's maturation affinity from somatically hypermutated genes. Yes. Is there a correlation between if we test positive but had lower viral exposure is why we have less symptom? No, there's no correlation between symptomatology and exposure and viral loads. That was actually another interesting point from the challenge study, that people who were symptomatic or not both had similar viral loads and similar kinetics. So, and this is something that was bandied about early in the pandemic. Oh yeah, if you get a higher viral exposure, you're going to have more symptoms. This is nonsense. It's just not true. I just run it past Amy, and she said, no, that's not true. And she's usually right. And someday people will get that. Is it possible to genetically modify a lethal virus to make it less lethal and more transmissible so that it can displace the lethal form? So you can make it easily less lethal. That's what the oral polio vaccine is. You don't have to worry about more transmissible. As long as it's as transmissible as the wild virus, it should displace it eventually. So the Sabin vaccine is not more transmissible than the wild virus, but it eventually displaces it from the population, and it's less virulent. So that's an example of that. Yes, we can do that. Recently recovered from COVID. I was triple vaxxed, planning to go to Cuba. I will have to do a PCR before my return to Canada next Friday or Saturday. Do you think I might test positive then? Well, I'm not, so you're in Cuba, you're going to go. I don't understand the timing here. Before you go back from Cuba to Canada, you have to do a PCR test. Might you test positive? Yeah, you could if you got... So you're vaccinated, but you could still get exposed, and you could get some virus reproduction in you. And it's possible. So let's say it takes 2-4 days, 2 days, say, to get a PCR positivity. So you could get exposed at the end of your trip and test PCR positive. So you really don't know. You just have to do it. If you want to go there, that's what you have to put up with. Do mice have a sense of humor? No, they don't. I once read an article in, I forgot what journal it was, but they had mice. Somehow they were looking at different responses of mice, and they had pictures of them. The facial expressions were all the same, which was kind of a joke, but, you know, stressed, happy, sad, anxious, bored. They were all the same. And somehow they were doing MRI to measure what these things should be, what the mice were experiencing, but the facial expressions were all the same. Okay, here we have an issue. Vincent's only $27.60 away from his monthly goal. So years ago, when I set up the Patreon account, I said, I'm going to make a goal of 5,000, and then if we reach it, I'll live stream TWIV. And now we're almost there, and I don't think my colleagues would like to do that. So give me some advice what to do. They don't want to live stream it. They just want it to be recorded so they can be, safe. And if they screw something up, they can tell me. They rarely tell me to cut things out, but now and then they do, especially when Dixon's on. Bonnie, I don't need proof that a vaccinated person can spread. And you're not listening to what I said. I said, vaccinated people who get exposed probably transmit far less. Did I say zero? I did not. So I don't need this proof of nothing. This is what bugs me, is when people are not listening to me. All right, but you have to put up with me saying that because you're here. So it's not zero. Nothing is zero. What's the proper spacing? 6 months is the proper spacing between the first and second dose. Then all is good. You are protected. What's your mechanism for losing your taste and smell? You have sensors. You have neurons in the olfactory mucosa And, smell is very closely linked to taste. The cells that support the neurons get damaged. Not the neurons themselves, the cells that support them. They're called sustentacular cells. You could look it up. They get damaged, and that's why the neurons don't work for a while. Many vaccines are 3 doses, not all of them. Polio is 3. That's correct, to give each of the 3 serotypes, although now they don't do a trivalent vaccine anymore, so now it's down to 2. Some others are, absolutely. Thank you, Richard, for your support. Really appreciate it. You don't have to agree. Absolutely not. We're here to tell you what we think. And what you do with that is up to you, but hopefully in the process you're learning something, right? Yes, so the hantaviruses spill over from mice to people. 3 cases. Yeah, there were a few cases here, and most of them are elsewhere in the U.S., mostly in west of the Mississippi, I guess. But it can be a very serious infection, yes, for sure. My 95-year-old mom is 4 months from her booster in October. Should she get another booster, and if so, when? I don't think you need a 4th shot. This is her 3rd shot, right? So that's currently what the U.S. is recommending, and I don't see any data for why you would need a 4th shot. And we talked about this earlier, right? No evidence that they're better. And here we're saying goodnight to Amy. How do you stay updated on the new COVID papers? Well, I do. Amy gets all the tables of contents emailed to her, which I found years ago is impossible for me because I don't look at them. So what I do is I subscribe to the RSS feeds. And whenever I have a moment, I flag the articles I want, and then later I go back and download them. But I don't look at Lit COVID, no. I also set up, there's a RSS feed for bioRxiv and medRxiv that combines everything, all the coronavirus stuff. So that's very useful if you want to look at preprints. But mostly Amy sends me everyday papers, usually by text. She texts me papers, me and Daniel. And many of the papers Daniel does, he gets from Amy. So that's what we do. Okay. My parents in Taiwan had their Moderna 6 months apart. Government is telling them they are eligible for a booster now. No, I don't believe they need a booster. The 6 month spacing is perfect. They'll need it. And 3 months would be too soon anyway. Thank you, Rob, for your contribution this week in fungi. And we have 850 people, which is about the same as last week, so that's good. We're not on the downside of the curve, right? We peaked at a little over 1,000 for 2 weeks, and we went to 900 and 800. Hopefully we don't keep going down, but, there are going to always be people here, right? The RNA persists and tests positive in PCR, but the mRNA of the vaccine degrades really fast. Yeah, well, they're 2 different things. Yes, that's correct. The RNA in the vaccine does not persist. It's got signals built into it that cause it to degrade, and the virus is different, right? It's a whole different thing. It's reproducing and amplifying itself, so there are many more copies, and it is it's totally different. It's coated in protein and so forth, and a lipid envelope and so forth. So totally different ball game there. It's not the same thing. You can't compare them. Do you think naturally infected and recovered people should be considered the same as fully vaccinated? Yes, I do. In fact, my wife is going for surgery in a couple of weeks, and she's told me today I don't need to have a PCR test because she tested positive a couple of months ago within the 90-day limit. And so that's good enough for the surgeon. So the CDC has said if you're infected, if you test positive in the previous 90 days, you don't need to have any tests. You're considered immune. And, this 90 days is based on some data, not a lot of data. But the problem is there are some data which indicate that milder infections give rise to less strong immunity, right? It's not huge studies, but some. So that's the only caveat there that we have to worry about. MIT came out with a new capsule that attaches to the stomach wall lining and inserts mRNA. Could this be a good vector for vaccines? I'm not sure why you'd want it in the stomach wall, right? I have to look at that because there are certainly capsules that pass through the stomach and open up in the intestine, right? So you can deliver a vaccine for the intestine that way. But attaching to the stomach cell wall and inserting their mRNA, it must be a tiny capsule. I just don't know why you'd want it in the stomach wall. That's all. I don't understand that. So I have to look into it. No, I'm not going to invite Malone. But I did invite Richard Plempner. That's who it is, the Molnupiravir guy. And I also invited Catalin Carrico. But I have no hope that she'll respond, actually. But I would love to have her on. I've had the J&J in April, Moderna in November. Would that be spaced far enough apart? April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, it's good. I don't think you need a booster, Jane. E be good. It's a great handle. Thank you, Annie. We appreciate your support. I'd like a good Viruses for Dummies book. All right, so it is not Viruses for Dummies, but there's a book on that you should get. Here, I'm going to bring it up for you. Sompirac. Here we go. How pathogenic viruses work. Here you go. I think this is a pretty good primer. Let me share this screen with you. How pathogenic viruses work. I don't want to update my audio. No. Let's move it over so you can see it. Lauren Sompirac. Okay? I think that would help you a lot. Sally. Okay, now we're into Twitter. Okay, again, Bonnie, be careful. Vaccine people can spread Omicron easily? Really? Just because you got it from your husband or vice versa? That's not the kind of science that we propagate here, please. They can spread. It's not zero, but it's not as much as an unvaccinated person. So what that contributes, we don't know. Thank you, Dan, for your contribution. Really appreciate it. And, getting towards the end, we might make it to the end at 10:30ish. And yes, so here's Amy's Twitter, Amy Virologist. I don't know which part is but you can find her. Just search for her on Twitter if you want. But she doesn't tweet, so she's coming on Twitter, on Twiv. Friday to talk about her paper, which is really fascinating. And she's going to go places with this paper if people can realize that it's really good stuff. I know it's a bacterium, but do you know why latent TB can be treated with 9 months of medication? Yeah, you take like isoniazid for 9 months, and I know many people who have taken that course, because the isoniazid is going to prevent them from dividing, and so with time they're going to be cleared. I think that's the mechanism, but I'm not totally sure about that. I'm sorry I missed your donation. Where was it? Let me go back and search, because I don't want to. I am just a human when it comes to money. Can I search? Yes, I can. Patricia, let's search. And it didn't show up. Maybe it was way in the beginning. I bet it was before I started the stream, Patricia. So I missed it. But I thank Patricia for your contribution. I think you do it early, and maybe that's the reason. So next time, wait. Okay. How can we know the U.S. case rates when folks are doing home testing? Yeah, that's a good point. We don't really know the true case rates, but we never did, right? But there are a lot of people now just being tested, and they're not even symptomatic. They just they need it for some travel reason or something like that. So, as I said, and Amy has said, this is not going to continue, because if we tested for everyone for every other infectious disease, we would be horrified to see what was out there. How many copies can a COVID virus something when infecting an SNP cell? I'm sick of telling people that viruses are always mutating. I'd like to blow their minds with a number. Well, here's the thing. If the genome, let's say there's 2 mutations every time the genome is copied. The genome is 30,000 bases long. Because normally in other viruses it would be, for that size genome, it would be maybe 30 mutations per reproduction. Let's cut it in half. Let's say it's 15. And so if you have, and you easily make 50,000 genomes per infected cell. So the whole genome can be mutated in that one infected cell. If every genome is mutated 10 times. I'm not sure that's what you want, but there you go. Didn't the Danish household study show that the attack rate was lower from vaccinated? It depended on the variant. It was with Delta, but not with Omicron because of immune evasion. But for sure it was with Delta, yes. Any chance to have Peter Daszak back on? I have emailed him, but he's just not answering. You have to be persistent with Peter, I've learned. I wouldn't mind. However, he is just around the corner from the incubator. How about that? This EcoHealth Alliance is not far from me. So he could actually come by. That would be fun, right? Didn't the challenge study yield reliable data on shedding? Yes, but they were unvaccinated people, remember. They didn't compare vaccinated with unvaccinated, but I think they're going to do that next, and that will be the key to see how much they shed. I'm telling you, folks, you're going to see they shed for a day and not enough to transmit very well, so transmissions can be very rare. That's what I think. You can open any windows at your college. Well, not every room. The room I'm in this year doesn't have any windows. And yes, I know white-tailed deer are a reservoir. I'm sure there are many other animals out there as well. Thank you, DR. JC virus. Yes. And MS. Yes, for sure. I'm a big fan of JC and MS for sure. Yep, we'll do that. Yep. Unlike love, herpes is forever. That's what I say in my course, and overjoyed you took it, so you know that. And I stole it from Saul Silverstein, for sure. Plenty of smart people are also skeptical of professionals. I appreciate expertise. Oh, that's it, The Death of Expertise. That's the book, right? I so appreciate expertise. That's why I love these videos of people repairing furniture and cooking because they have expertise and it shows. And there's nothing I like better than an expert, whether it's a writer, a musician, an actor, a filmmaker. I love expertise because they do things right. What the hell is the problem? I mean, it's not just academic nerds that we're talking about, right? It's any kind of expertise. Yeah, there we go. Bamfilda I must have seen this out of the corner of my eye. The death of expertise. But we don't talk about that in terms of the crafts and the arts and so forth. But it applies, I think. You think it's not respected by people who didn't do well in school? Well, I sort of understand that they're frustrated that they can't handle it. But, I think you need to chill. Why are so many deer getting COVID? This is a great question. So somehow it gets into them, and then it spreads very easily from deer to deer because they chill with each other. They lick each other and do all kinds of things close by. And so how it gets from people into the deer, well, there are lots of contact points between people and deer. You just see the cover of the New York Times science section. I think it was this week. I didn't buy it. I saw it lying on the ground at Penn Station, Newark. And this guy was feeding something to a deer. The point is that we contact deer. So that must be how it gets into them. Thank you, Sally. Ash, I admire its purity. But then he says the perfect something. You can't kill it. It's the perfect something. Yes, I admire its purity. Thank you. You guys are great at sourcing everything. Yes, early on the virus was considered slow to mutate. If you listen to the next TWIV, and you'll hear our guest Mark Johnson say, I remember on TWIV you said in the early on, there are only 7 mutations so far in this virus. Yes. And then it infected so many people. And then we realized that coronaviruses undergo antigenic mutation. The initial assumption was that coronaviruses have error correction, so their mutation rate is lower, and there's no antigenic variation. And that was thrown out the door early on by Jesse Bloom, who found it in common cold coronas, and then we found it in SARS-CoV-2. Nothing like learning along, right? SARS-CoV-2 has been described as a vascular virus that is transmitted respiratorily. No, it's not a vascular virus. Is it? Absolutely not. It's a respiratory system, mucosal respiratory virus, and everything else. Blood clots, not convinced it's reproduction as opposed to some inflammatory response. You found Vincent because you listened to Rogan. How's that possible? Maybe Lex Friedman. But they're buddies, so maybe he mentioned it. I don't know. I have a compost garden. The deer often wander into my yard to eat from. We had COVID. I wonder if we spread it to the deer from our table scraps. It depends how long they sat out there. If it's cold, it doesn't last a long time on surfaces. But it's possible. Yeah, it is possible. Did manganese inhibit RNA virus polymerases? No, manganese can be used as a cofactor by some polymerases. I don't believe it's inhibitory. I came to TWIV after seeing an interview with Griffin on MedCram. Cool. I love all the ways people find us. MedCram. Yeah. I've never been on that. Nope. And you found TWIV via the comments on Campbell. Well, good. It was just great ways of getting here. Oh, boy. So I guess you guys like MedCram. That's fine. I think it's reasonable. This is Lex always asks, what's the meaning of life? Sam Harris gave the same answer you did. It's an irrelevant question. There's no meaning. This is it. That's totally it. It's random. It's something that happened. And there's no significance to it whatsoever. Many viruses are known to alter people's social behavior, meaning they augment it in order to increase transmission. Well, I don't know if they're known. That's a theory, right? And SARS-CoV-2, I mean, how would it augment transmission? I mean, rabies alters your behavior in a massive way, obviously, but I agree there could be subtle effects, but I'm not convinced that any of the data. It's really squishy data, and it's very hard to sort out. My North Carolina school district will likely make mask optional in March. I'm on the fence about continuing to teach. I don't want long COVID. Well, long COVID after vaccination is very rare, according to Daniel Griffin and the studies that have looked at it. So depends on how much you love teaching versus your health, I suppose, if you're concerned about it. I don't think it's a worry, frankly. I had really bad post-viral fatigue for weeks after norovirus. Oh, really? That's interesting. So I think we have to consider that all viruses can be accompanied by post-viral incidents of all sorts, post-polio, long COVID, ME/CFS, and so forth. But yes, a vaccine is being worked on. We'll have a norovirus vaccine at one point. But I have not had noro for ages, ever since my kids were young. And it probably wasn't noro. It was probably a rotavirus infection. Why does the UK and the US have different outcomes? Well, the problem is these are observational studies that have confounding variables that really nullify the observations. You can't control the population. The populations are different. The timing is different. You cannot control results from different countries. That's why you have to test vaccines in different countries. You just can't test them in the US and license them globally. So this has been a problem throughout this pandemic, is that people are saying, oh, look what happened in Israel. This has implications for the U.S. No, it doesn't have any implications for the U.S. Is there evidence of other respiratory viruses becoming endemic? Well, many are already. Rhinoviruses are endemic. Influenza viruses, paramyx or adenovirus. There are many endemic human respiratory viruses for sure. Are these Zenny glasses? I don't know. They're not. They're Didinsky reading glasses. They're on Amazon. I just like the color. They're just reading for my computer. I usually wear a prescription, but this is just for looking at the computer. Thank you, Westfield 90. Do you think this fall there will be another wave? Yeah, there will be. There will be a wave this summer and this fall, I think. We still have a lot of uninfected people. Would an Omicron-specific vaccine reduce the number of infections? Well, according to Moderna, no, right? That's what someone said earlier. But, Jeff, if you still have 40% of the population unvaccinated, what's the point? I don't think that's going to add to it. And it's not going to reduce infections for more than 6 months. You're still going to be infected because memory responses are always delayed after infection. Well, I do AMAs on Reddit on Wednesdays, so I think I'll go back in 2 weeks if you want to come. But they were good questions. It was good enough. It's just that I was on a few times earlier, and there are far more people then. People I know who are vaccine hesitant worry it's altering their DNA. No. It doesn't alter your DNA. Tell me something else you're worried about, because there's no evidence for that whatsoever. What's your thoughts on developing an influenza rapid antigen test? There are influenza rapid antigen tests, but they're just for doctors' offices or clinics. So it would not be a bad idea, but I don't know what you do with the data, right? What do you want to do? You get sniffles, you want to see if it's flu, and if it is, then you need a prescription for an antiviral. So it's just not clear to me what use it is. How does immunity work if it needs 3 shots? It's poorly spaced. It depends. The COVID vaccines were rushed within 3-4 weeks initially, the first 2 doses, and that's too close. If they had been 2 doses 6 months apart, that would have worked fine. It would be a 2-dose vaccine. But for polio, you needed 3 because there were 3 serotypes that you needed to get immunity in. The AMA was in the coronavirus subreddit. Can you use your community page to let us know when you're elsewhere? What community page? Do I have a community page? Yeah, I guess on YouTube I have a community page. Okay. I should do that. Yeah, Offit has always said that he didn't think boosters are necessary, still to this day, which I respect. But I did think the study out of Ontario in terms of antibody protection was convincing, although it didn't address severe disease. I totally agree with that. Okay, 10:35. We need to wrap this up. Let's see. We're pretty close to the bottom. I'm confused why you support face masks. The diameter of a particle is 60 nanometers. The thread diameter is 1,000 times. Well, Queendom, it's not the virus that the masks are stopping. It's the droplets of water that contain virus that are hung up in the mask. Masks never stop virus particles. They come out of you in droplets. The droplets are certainly hung up in the mask because they're way bigger than the thread diameter. Okay? So, check your facts before you make such charges. Could a virus mutate so it could live longer on surfaces? Sure. Why not? I don't know what the selection would be for, right? I don't see that happening, right? Because you'd have to have multiple transmissions from surfaces, which just doesn't happen now. So I just don't see the selection for that. How does one do a study to determine the optimal timing? Well, typically vaccines are developed over, 10 years. And so you could try timing and look at immune responses and antibody and T cells and then say, let's try 2 different timings to begin with, or try it in lab animals first. Thank you, Les. Mumps took 4 years. Drunk virology would be... No, you're not going to get drunk virology out of me. No way. That's something... No, I don't want to do that. I don't mind drinking good wine or scotch and getting a nice buzz from that, but drunken, nope, not doing it. Sorry. Okay, folks, let's spin down to the bottom and make sure we don't pass donors. Thank you, Doreen. I'm expect the masking in my area to plummet. Yes. Would you expect a spike in cases? I think the spike is going to be more towards the end of the beginning of the summer when people are traveling. I don't think it's going to be done by... I think a lot of people are still going to mask, right? Why do we make kids wear masks and not pets? It's a zoonotic virus. Interesting. Listen, people who have pets, my dogs would rip a mask off in no time. Unless you made it in a way that they couldn't, and then they'd be very unhappy. I don't want unhappy dogs in my house. And yes, I agree, TWIV doesn't have to be live. Because we are discussing, and to answer questions is very distracting, because I know with Nels we do a stream sometimes, and it's very different. So I hope people understand. I'm going to change the goal and make it something else. Where's the data on the 6-month spacing being perfect? Well, there was a number of papers have come out now. The original one was out of Ontario when Omicron first came out, and then there have been a couple in the past week or so. So I'm not going to roll them off now, but there are plenty. Okie dokie, let's see. That's Gabriel. Thank you for your contribution. Really appreciate it. And I know there are a lot of questions left that we're going to skip through, but I do have mods, and all of you need to do other things. Thank you, Jane, for your contribution. But come back next week, please. Bring your questions. And don't post them too early. So the chat opens early, but when I hit the button, that's when the comments come up. And I usually don't see them before then. So, you could chat amongst yourselves early on. That's great, but don't ask a question until we get on. Otherwise, I'll miss it. And lots of good comments. I wish I could go through, but we have to end this now. Thank you, Jean, for your contribution. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Ken, for your contribution. Sadly, high risk. So first of all, if you are 3 times vaxxed and you have a comorbidity, obesity is a big one. You just be vigilant. If you could test yourself weekly, that's a good way to mitigate by weekly testing. If you look at the challenge study, they said weekly testing gets a good fraction of infections. And just be prepared to get monoclonals or antivirals if you do test positive. That will save your life, okay? But yeah, no steroids until phase 2 because steroids will inhibit your immune response. So phase 2 means inflammatory phase when you have low blood oxygen and you can't breathe and so forth. So just get ready for monoclonals. Thank you, Brent, for your contribution to the incubator and science education. Thank you, AW, for your contributions. Appreciate it. And that we have gotten to the end here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, mods. Les, Steph, Vanity Nutrition, Tom, Frank, our 5 moderators. Thank you all for being here. Before you go, please do a thumbs up. Hey, we're at 490. Could we get over 500, folks? Just so I sleep better. Let's see. And thanks all for coming. I want you all to be safe in the next week or so. And bring your questions back next time. Thanks, everybody. Good night.